Hi, and welcome to Food Farms and Chefs. I am here with Joey Ward, who is the owner and chef of Southern Belle and Georgia Boy. And I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us on Food Farms and Chefs.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
I'm excited too. So I was actually impressed with the fact that, mental health and making sure that there's work life balance is very big for you. So but and I want to put a pin in that, but just, your history as far as how you got, became a chef and where, what brought you to the point of owning, the Southern Belle and Georgia Boy. I let our listeners know how you got to being an owner.
Yeah, so I was really fortunate that I didn't really have to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. When I was a little kid, I kind of fell in love with cooking at a super young age from watching some of the early cooking shows on TV. And then I don't know if it was maybe I was just lazy and didn't want to try anything else, but I just kind of kind of stuck with that, and that really became the goal. The end goal was to be a chef of some sort. And I spent a few years trying to figure out which part of the industry I wanted to be in, be it catering or hotels or country clubs, and then it landed at Woodfire Grill here in Atlanta for my first privately owned restaurant that was farm to table fine dining, and worked my way up from there and became the sous chef there, and haven't looked back at any of the other options. So from Woodfire, I worked for Kevin Gillespie there during his stint on Top Chef, which he became a pretty famous from that, and adopted his approach to food, and then went on to later open Gunshow, his restaurant. I was a head chef there I ran that for right around 7 years before getting the notion to open my own place, which is where it brings us to November of 2019, when we decided to open the doors for Southern Belle and Georgia Boy, and began this crazy journey that we've been on since.
So, I mean, obviously, like you have a long history in the culinary field because I did read up on it and see that you did try out working at a country club too. Well, I shouldn't say try out. You did work at a country club. So you really have run the whole gamut of various like restaurants and, and experiences as a chef, and a line cook and whatnot. But um, how did that affect you as far as decision making, with how you're running your own restaurants?
Sure. So I think there's a lot to be gained from the various experiences that I've had throughout my career. Some things are, processes and procedures that I wanted to apply to my own business. And other things, you work for certain people that you learn what not to do, and how you don't want to run a kitchen. And I've worked for both. I've been very fortunate to work for most people that I wanted to imitate, which has been good. But I have worked for a couple of folks that I learned what not to do, and that I think there's value in that as well. And I apply that to the way I manage and operate the employees at my restaurant.
Which is nice. Now, as far as, running your restaurant, like I know you also co-own it with your wife, if I recall, correct?
That's correct, Emily. Yeah, she's awesome. She's a full-time lawyer and part-time restaurateur as well. So
And I've seen some of the photos that you guys put up of the foods that you create, and it looks absolutely delicious. But let's just jump into the menu because I know that the two concepts kind of they a little bit coincide, but you also rotate staff between the two restaurants to like prevent burnout. I read that in one of the articles. So
sure.
how are your staff and how are you with managing the two different venues?
Yeah, so Southern Belle is the main footprint of the building. It's also like the main entrance that you come through as a guest. We have 40 seats in there, and the whole ethos of both concepts is all farm to table. We're working with local farms and super seasonality. Um, and just uh, it's evolved a lot from, I don't know if anyone caught that timing of opening, but it was just before the pandemic. I think we were active for 4 solid months, and then everything happened globally, and that forced a lot of change, and we evolved, and learned, honestly, some very valuable lessons that later had us end up where we are now, and we're still growing and changing. But the way that the two restaurants interact with each other is, Southern Belle is currently a 4-course tasting menu, offering hyper seasonal cuisine, and speaking to the local sort of authentic Atlanta voice that we try to have. And everything from a Delta cart that roams around our dining room periodically to do a tableside preparation, to the artwork on the wall, to the vegetables and farmers that we're using. So that is, a big part of the identity of Southern Belle. Georgia Boy is more exclusive, I would say. It's a speakeasy that's located inside Southern Belle. And it seats 8 guests at a time in a communal dining experience that involves a secret door as well. So it's kind of more theater is woven into that. And with that chef's table experience that Georgia Boy offers, it's around 16 courses. So it's definitely a commitment of time and senses for sure.
Obviously, like, I've done chef tasting menus, and it isn't a full-on experience. And, obviously, like, you're very community involved, and, Georgia involved, like, where you're bringing in hyper local, and, probably CSAs or farmers, and, I believe distilleries and whatnot too. How do you go about choosing the pairings that you offer, and how often do you change your menu?
Well, the pairings have nothing to do with me. I have to be honest. Other than choosing really great people to do that for us. We have our wine director and sommelier Ellen, who has come on just a couple of months ago and taken over the position of wine director, and she's doing a really great job and bringing in some fun biodynamic wines that are engaging. Some of the wine pairings are even challenging guests. I'll say, like, we have a wine on the menu right now that's known. It's an orange wine, which is a white wine that's made in the style of a red wine. So the color of the wine is actually orange. There are no oranges involved as far as citrus, but the color is orange, and it can be divisive. But I love that. I love that conversation at the table and the educational value that comes out of that as well for the guest, to be exposed to something that they haven't seen. And as far as the menu goes and the changing of it, it is hyper seasonal. So we really take inspiration from what the local farms are producing, and that can vary, depending on weather and growing patterns. Our growing season in Georgia is super unpredictable sometimes. If you get a cold pop, you might not get peaches for another 6 weeks, or you might have strawberries for a little longer for whatever reason. And it's just kind of reacting to that and using our creativity to adapt and evolve the menu hyper seasonally.
And that's also a predominant, like, it probably on people's palates, like, somebody with a distinguished palate, or a foodie who has been in and around the scene for a while, probably can pick up on the nuances and the level of care and consideration that you are bringing and offering by doing that, because it is a particular, like, palate that can pull the different flavors, where it's hyper seasonal, like, where you're getting the freshest ingredients. Like, right now, ramps is, everything is ramps up here. But, but, I'm like, do you ever choose a certain ingredient to highlight?
Yes, that's actually really how I create dishes. I start by getting excited about an ingredient, and then oftentimes we'll find ourselves looking at how many ways we can feature that ingredient in a specific course. Things like our bread service currently in Georgia Boy is titled a celebration of spring vidalias. And so it's this Vidalia onion pão de queijo, which is like a Brazilian cheese bread.
Okay.
And we've accompanied that with 6 different preparations of Vidalia onion, to really everything from, the peels of the onion, which we turn into an onion ash and make that into a butter. So it's burnt onion butter, to a chimichurri accompaniment that's made with the greens of the spring Vidalias. Really kind of using every part of the product.
Which is wonderful. Now, I know that there are certain there are certain palates that love things with a lot of heat. And you have one item that I saw that I might be a little bit apprehensive of trying, but if I believe it was something dealing with mushrooms and hot something.
Oh, the hot and numbing
Yes.
mushroom. Yeah. So that dish, that's a part of a dish. So it's hot and numbing dry beef is a traditional Szechuan dish, and we are replicating that dish from one of our favorite restaurants here on Buford Highway. It's a region of Atlanta where a lot of different ethnic cuisines are located, and so you can drive down this strip of Buford Highway and get Indian food or Venezuelan food or Mexican or Szechuan Chinese in this case. And so in order to highlight that region and tell the story of Atlanta, we have a dish that has 3 different bites, all containing mushroom, that are replicating dishes from various stops along Buford Highway. The dish is called a trip down Buford Highway. And one of those dishes is Szechuan hot and numbing dry beef that we make with king trumpet mushrooms that we get locally cultivated. Basically dehydrating those and smoking them to imitate the flavor of the beef. And the spiciness isn't super overwhelming. One of the key components of hot and numbing beef is the Szechuan peppercorn, which actually is more of a numbing sensation than spice. The hot comes from Szechuan chilies, but they're not super spicy. But it does come with a disclaimer that the dish may cause a numbing or tingling sensation on the palate for a few minutes. And I always let everybody know that they don't need to call the paramedics, that that's supposed to happen if they eat Szechuan peppercorn.
Because I like just the name of it. I was like, I would be a little apprehensive of actually trying that because of the name, but then I would also be super interested because like I like trying things that challenge me. So when I read the name, I was like, should I? Would I?
Yeah,
Um,
and that's one of the great things about a chef's tasting menu, is that it does challenge people, and sometimes, a lot of times, gets people to try things that normally they wouldn't order, on a traditional a la carte menu.
yeah. Now, I'm obviously you have, a very swanky because I saw the photos. It looks beautiful, by the way. The pictures of your restaurant. I don't live in Georgia, so I don't have the privilege to visit you, not immediately, but I would love to visit you at some point in time. The atmosphere that you build around the dining experience too also adds to, everybody's full experience. So, um, I'm just trying to like imagine what it would be like as a guest where I'm walking in and you have like this amazing venue and then even have that walk through. Like how do people find out about the word of like about the speakeasy and about Georgia Boy?
Yeah, so Georgia Boy, I'm discovering is mostly coming about word of mouth. Folks are telling people about their experience, and we're getting some. We've been highlighted in a few articles as well, publications, and the two um, the two environments, the Southern Belle aesthetic versus Georgia Boy, they're intentionally very different.
Mm,
So when you walk in Southern Belle, we're located in the historic Plaza Theater building in Atlanta. It's almost 100 years old, and we have this super like Art Deco out front. It's all like neon and bright, flashing billboards. We're right next to this Plaza Theater, which is super cool. And so when you come in, we're in a strip mall essentially attached to the theater, and it's very unassuming, the outside. When you come in, it's all exposed brick. The original stamped tin ceiling from the original build out is there that we replicated. And then the art is all um, curated by myself and my wife to reflect Atlanta landmarks, historic figures. I think we've got John Lewis's mugshot on the wall. And then pop culture. We've got pictures of like um, Andre 3000 and Janelle Monáe and various artists that have influenced, different culture of Atlanta. Um, and then when it has a very old world feel in there, very classic, very laid back, very comfortable. And when you go through the secret door into Georgia Boy, it reflects more of a minimalist sort of approach. We have white tile walls, black ceilings, stone or concrete high top tables, where the food is supposed to be the main star of the room.
And I mean, if you're a foodie and you're going there to eat, that's an obvious, like a given, like, but for me, like you would also be one of the stars. Because you're the one that curated that menu and came up with all the concepts and brought all the flavors and the ingredients together and are plating it. And I mean, I know that you have staff, obviously, that's helping you, line cooks and whatnot, but the beauty behind like a fully plated dish, especially for tasting menus, and chef's tables, like it's an experience that if you haven't ever had before, it's an experience that you 100% should experience at some point. So, I have to give you a lot of accolades for what you do.
Thank you. Yeah, I think one of the really cool aspects about dining in Georgia Boy in particular is the storytelling that comes with each dish. It's based on a dinner party. Like I said, it's we see tables of 8 in there, and if you and a guest came along, you may be sitting with 6 other strangers, and so it's about communal dining. It's about sort of being interactive with the chefs and the other dining companions, and then telling the story behind the dishes, either the inspiration or the ingredients that we're super excited about.
And that's a huge, thing. I want to also mention the fact that I saw on your menu you do offer zero proof libations, we'll say. Which I have to say, like, that's a big trend these days where, people are kind of leaning towards like, I want to go out and have fun and drink a cocktail, but I don't actually want to drink alcohol. So I will say on your menu, I noticed that there are some zero proof options too.
We do, yeah. It's actually really a big project for us that we're very proud of. I myself am in recovery and actually don't drink alcohol, and it's something dear to my heart to have these options that are available, and not only just available, but as much thought and care go into those creations as do the regular cocktail menu and the regular food menu. To be honest. I mean, we offer a full beverage pairings of non-alcoholic items for our 16-course menu. So if someone wants to come in, and even if you're not, sober, you just don't want to drink wine or whatever, you can try these concepts or the zero proof menu and feel the level of care and attention to detail that we put into that, along with everything else.
Yeah. So, and then I also want to say that you go above and beyond with your desserts too. I was looking at the desserts that you created and I was like, "Oh, those look delicious," or sound delicious, I should say.
Thanks. That's been just a passion project for me. I just have always had a sweet tooth, and had a little bit of time during that time period of trying to discover where I fit in the industry of being a pastry chef for a while. Um, and I really loved the artistry and creativity that you can apply to, the end of a meal with pastry. And so it's something that I really have a lot of fun working with. I'm not great at it. I wouldn't call myself a pastry chef these days, but I do enjoy that aspect of it. A lot of savory chefs don't kind of translate their craft to that portion of the menu, and I really have fun doing that. And I like eating them. I'm really actually glad that I don't work with pastry all the time, because I would just be eating sweets like 24/7, I think.
I would too. And funny enough, I hate having to end this because I'm having fun and enjoying our conversation. But unfortunately, I do have to let you go. So let our listeners know where they can find you online and in person.
Absolutely. So we're at southernbelleatl.com if you want to check us out. There's a link to Georgia Boy in there too if you're looking to do the more grand tasting menu. We can make reservations on Resi, as well as check us out on Facebook and Instagram.
All right. Thank you so much, Joey, for Chef
Uh,
Chef Ward for joining us on Food Farms and Chefs.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And Joey's fine.
Thank you. And we will be right back after this short break.